What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking our top 5 must-own running backs for the 2022 fantasy football season. Basically, these are all guys that are being drafted outside of the first round in drafts, but they have huge league-winning upside, so you should absolutely be targeting them across all formats. So definitely you want to tune into this breakdown. If you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree with these names? Who else would you add to this list of top 5 must-own running backs, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all. And lastly, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide, now available for purchase. Has everything you can want at a great value. Top 150 overall player ranking, the standard and PPR formats, individual player bios, tiers, projections, along with general fantasy advice. All those details in the description. But with that being said, let's get into it. You can see we have got our consensus ADPs for the running back position pulled up here per Fantasy Pros. Quick note, this is based on PPR scoring, but like I said before, these are all names that I think are absolutely must-own dudes regardless of the format. They're going to help you dominate your league. So without further ado, let's kick it off. And we're going to start with the number 8 guy on this list, one DeAndre Swift. He is somebody, Swift, that I think can be an Austin Eckler light type of version in 2022. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, let's look at last season, because last year, heading into the NFL season, there was all this chatter. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, is it smoke? Is Jamal Williams going to get these opportunities? Is it going to be running back by committee? All that proved to be completely false. DeAndre Swift was the dude. And in fact, when he was healthy, when he finally got it going, and the Detroit Lions kind of figured things out a little bit, well, he was putting up top 5 PPR numbers for fantasy purposes. And that's incredibly impressive considering, the state of the Detroit Lions. But he's an absolutely extremely versatile running back, a dual threat running back that can do it all. Very talented pass catcher. Now, yes, do I still think Jamal Williams is a talented backup? Sure, he can be a worthy handcuff if you're a DeAndre Swift owner. But Swift is the guy here, as we saw last season. Make no mistake about it. And the great part about this is, again, depending on the size of your leagues, he is typically going at the beginning of the second round, middle of the second round, sometimes even the end of the second if it's, for example, a 10-team league. The way this offense projects, look, Swift is going to be the primary rusher. I would imagine he gets at least like 70% of the split at the running back position. And then what'll be the most interesting here and the X factor is how the Detroit Lions kind of order their pass catchers in terms of volume distribution, because they have a lot of guys here. That is the one thing that I will point out. Swift, where does he fit in that pecking order? Because you've still got Amon-Ra St. Brown, you've got TJ Hawkinson, you've got the newly added Jameson Williams, you've still got DeAndre Swift in there. And Jared Goff isn't a huge pass volume type of quarterback. He's not a Patrick Mahomes where he's going to have 5,000 passing yards. But even despite all those things, I do think he's going to be someone that takes advantage of those dink and dump passes. DeAndre Swift excels in that role. He gets utilized in the red zone as well. I love him. I think you're basically getting, again, like an Austin Eckler type of discount on him this year. I think next year he's going to be a without a doubt first round selection. I think the only thing right now that's kind of holding him back is the fact that he's on the Lions. People kind of scared away from that offense. But again, you look at last season, what he did when he was healthy, and it's tough to refute that production. That's why this year I am in on DeAndre Swift. Next, let's move on to one Aaron Jones. I am absolutely befuddled how he's ranked so low on this list, but he is, again, if there's a poster child for this kind of breakdown of must-own running backs, it's Aaron Jones. He comes in at the number 12 spot in terms of running backs, the number 21 overall spot. Again, that would translate to a second round selection. The majority of drafts that I've done, regardless of the league size, he is easily being selected in the second round. In fact, middle of the second round, sometimes even in a 10-team league, I have been able to get him in the early third round. That is absolute highway robbery, folks, especially in PPR formats. Yes, his upside is higher in those formats, but I mean, a guy that could end up leading at the running back position, the Green Bay Packers, in terms of, honestly, receptions and yards receiving wise, it's absolutely bonkers that people aren't realizing this. Sure, A.J. Dillon is there, but I still think this backfield also belongs to Aaron Jones. I think he's going to get the majority of the splits, whether it's 55-45, 60-40, and I would guess it's more so in that range. But a lot of people are going to point to last season with A.J. Dillon. And again, yes, if there's an injury, A.J. Dillon is super valuable, but we're predicting this based on a fully healthy season. Last year, the games where A.J. Dillon was very effective was either A, where Aaron Jones was hurt if you look at the stats, B, where the game was already taken care of, Aaron Jones was being rested, or towards the end of the season where the games didn't matter all that much. So for those reasons, I'm still very much so an Aaron Jones believer. The fact that you can get a guy, in the middle to the end of the second round who can absolutely in PPR formats finish as a top 5 running back is insane. He, again, in terms of value, he is the Austin Eckler of last year. He can do it all. He is one of the favorite targets for Aaron Rodgers, and without Devontae Adams there, again, you look at Aaron Jones's production without Devontae Adams when he was unavailable for the Packers. Jones becomes the primary pass catcher on that offense. Easily will get you between, I'd say honestly close to double-digit targets. And then anything you get from him in the rushing department is gravy. Huge floor in PPR formats. I love everything about him. He's the most proven player on this offense, period. The one that has the most trust with Aaron Rodgers. Sure, I really like somebody like an Allen Lazard, but Aaron Jones, he's proven it more so before. More consistent, more everything. I love Aaron Jones this year. I'm targeting him absolutely everywhere. But let's continue to move on to the number 3 guy on our list. That is one Saquon Barkley. Comes in at the 14th overall running back here per Fantasy Pros. Again, he's a guy that probably 2 months ago was going easily in the 3rd round, but the name appeal is driving up his ADP. Now he's typically being drafted in the 2nd round. I've seen everything from the early 2nd round to the end of the 2nd round, but all things considered, that's still really good value. I have him as a top 10 running back, and I think the main thing with Barkley is so many people have been burned by him these last 2 years. But let's not forget, ACL injury and then playing probably at not 100% behind an awful offensive line and just poor coaching, everything, just an awful situation for him to succeed. Now that line has been revamped. He's even, more time removed from his injury, and you've got some potentially more competent coaches in place. Barkley is still going to be the focal point of this offense, and I feel like he's an underrated dual threat running back, a guy that can be top 5 in rushing yards, but can also potentially be top 5 for running backs in like receptions in that pass catching category. That's why I love Barkley. I think the arrow is pointing up for him. We'll see how much his ADP continues to rise, but the fact of the matter is he's still not being drafted in the 1st round, whereas that's a very real possibility for him. I think it's going to be a situation where whether it's as a pass catcher, whether it's as a rusher, he's going to get a lot of usage in this Giants offense. And, I think regardless of Daniel Jones, Barkley is going to be successful. That's why I'm excited about him. I think he's going to bounce back, and we're going to see rookie year Saquon Barkley type of performances. And at the discount of potentially getting him in the middle to the end of the 2nd round, I am all in on that. A guy that, I think has equally as high value, if not higher, in standard formats compared to some of these other more maybe pass-heavy type of running backs like Swift and Aaron Jones that we've mentioned so far. But let's continue to move on here with number 4 guy on our list, Ezekiel Elliott. And I know what you're saying, is this 2019? Is this 2020? These are all guys that were a little bit more relevant then. Ezekiel Elliott, Barkley, these last 2 years were like top 3, top 4 picks, but not the case anymore. And with Zeke, honestly, I think it's very unjustified. Like last season, Ezekiel Elliott, he's come out and said it. The Cowboys have come out and said it. Reports have been made by guys that cover the team. Like Ezekiel Elliott got hurt at the beginning of the year, played the majority of the season on a bad leg, and was still a top 10 running back for fantasy purposes. And now he's fully healthy. The Cowboys, they've still got a good offensive line. And I know people are going to say, the usage for Tony Pollard. The reason the usage for Tony Pollard was higher than it's ever been before is because Zeke wasn't 100%. That's the main reason. And yet, Zeke is being drafted now in the 3rd round of draft, which is absolutely insane. Sometimes, again, if it's a 10-team league, I've been able to get him in the 4th round, which is absolutely bonkers. I think, sure, he's not as sexy of a name as he was 2 years ago, but there's no reason why he can't have another top 10 running back finish. And the fact that you can get a top 10 running back finish in the 3rd round, that's insane value. This offense isn't going to all of a sudden become incompetent. Zeke is still getting paid extremely well, so the Cowboys are going to utilize him. Sure, Tony Pollard's time will come. He's a very valuable handcuff, but I think at least for one more year, 2022, Zeke is going to show people why, similar to Saquon Barkley, he's a very, very talented dual threat running back. He's still one of the top running backs in the NFL. I love everything about Zeke, and for that reason, still have a good offense, good offensive line, coming back fully healthy for the entirety of the year. Zeke should have easily a top 10 season, and you can get him in the 3rd round. But let's finish off here with the last name on our list. That is Travis Etienne, probably the guy that's, compared to the first 4 names, the least, household type of dude, because last season he misses the entirety of the year with a Liz Frank, and it's the Jaguars, right? They were a complete dumpster fire last year, but this year, new head coach. That's immediately, the Urban Meyer factor is gonna help that he's not there. And the biggest thing for me is James Robinson tearing his Achilles last year at the end of the season. Now I know there's reports saying that he's not going to start the year. At least people don't expect that he will on the PUP list, which I think is insane. But look, the Achilles injury is the hardest injury to come back from, arguably in all of sports, but definitely in football and definitely at the running back position. And you don't have to look far at how hard it is to do. Cam Akers, last year for the Rams, he had a miraculous comeback in terms of being able to return for the Rams at the end of the season. But it was so easy to see, even if you're not a avid football or fantasy fan, that he was not at 100%. He didn't have the ability to cut like he did, the burst, the speed, everything. And the same thing is going to happen with James Robinson. And on the flip side, ETN is somebody that, is a great pass-catching running back as well. I think he can fit into that DeAndre Swift type of role, in terms of top 5 in the pass catching and reception category for running backs. Definitely more valuable in PPR formats, but then can also lead the team in rushing yards and rush attempts. Like, even if James Robinson plays somehow the entirety of the season, I guarantee you Travis Etienne is going to lead the Jaguars in rush attempts and rush yards, and that's because of the injury. I love Etienne in 2022. You can get him in the 4th, maybe even a 5th round of drafts, even though his ADP, people are coming around to this, and he's starting to go in the 3rd rounds. But I still think he's a value there. I think he can be an RB1. I have him as a top 12 running back, so I'm definitely confident in him. And the fact that you can get him potentially as your RB2 or even as your 3rd running back on your team with the type of upside that he has, he's going to be one of the most involved weapons on this offense. I just think the the upside that he has is almost going to be unrivaled. I'd put him in that like Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift type of category. So for that reason, I love ETN. I love the upside, and I think 2022 is going to be a year to remember. And again, when you consider the draft cost of a potentially 4th or 5th round pick, that makes this all the much sweeter. But with that, we wrap up our top 5 must-own running backs for the 2022 season. As always, let us hear it in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree? What other names would you put on this list? If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And lastly, make sure to check out the 2022 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. All the details in the description. And in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.